Welcome back, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. We now come to the presentation of the ICDS Lifetime Achievement Award. This award exists to acknowledge and celebrate the work of leading researchers in the field of Dalcroze studies. Every 2 years, the ICDS Scientific Committee invites nominations of individuals who have made an extraordinary contribution to the development of Dalcroze studies through high quality and influential research and dissemination via such means as publications, presentations, exhibitions, online platforms, artistic outputs, teaching, training and supervision. Dalcroze studies is understood as a transdisciplinary field where a broad variety of disciplines and associated methodologies intersect. Hello. These include music education, music health and well-being, dance and somatic practices, theatre, music perception and cognition, music psychology, music neuroscience, and musicology. Can we make sure that everybody's muted, please?
Okay. It's my turn now.
Can we make sure that everybody is muted, please? It's nice to hear music education going on. That's what we're here. That's what we're all about, isn't it? We're just trying to figure out where that's coming from. Okay, I think we're fine there. I'll just repeat the last paragraph. Dalcroze studies is understood as a transdisciplinary field where a broad variety of disciplines and associated methodologies intersect. These include music education, music health and well-being, dance and somatic practices, theatre, music perception and cognition, music psychology, music neuroscience, and musicology. The ICDS Scientific Committee has decided that at this conference, the award should go to Helga, Nera, Tsugasti, who we are delighted to have as our guest of honour. To present the award, I am pleased to welcome Helga's close colleagues, Professor Angelika Hauser-Delafant and Magister Christoph Falschlunger, from the Department of Music Movement Education at the University of Music and Performing Arts, Vienna.
Thank you, John, and welcome all in the audience, and welcome mainly Helga. I just give you some information about her and why she should receive now the ICDS Lifetime Achievement Award. Helga Nera Tsugasti studied primary and special education at the Teacher Training College in Innsbruck in Austria. Afterwards, she studied music and movement education rhythmics in Vienna, where she was a student of Rosalia Kladek and Brigitte Müller, who in 1959 founded the music and movement education rhythmic studies at what is now the University of Music and Performing Arts, Vienna. Helga has taught rhythmics and music pedagogy, working with people with special needs her whole life. From 1995 to 2015, she also worked as a teacher at the Department of Music and Movement Education at the University of Music and Performing Arts, Vienna. During this time, she had a profound influence on and offered deep insights to the students regarding rhythmics with people with special needs. In this field, Helga has made significant contributions not only to the students on the rhythmic program, but also to communities and organizations in Vienna and beyond. Her influence was and is still enormous. Among her achievements, we can note the following. The implementation of a new specialization in the course of music pedagogy for instrumental students who go on to be music teachers. The establishment of different inclusive groups at several institutes of the University of Music and Performing Arts Vienna and beyond. Collaboration with important specialists working in inclusive music making and inclusive dance in the German-speaking countries. These pedagogues, artists, and scientists include Dr. Georg Feuser, Robert Wagner, Dr. Susanne Quinten, and Wolfgang Stange, which are well known in the German-spoken countries. Collaborating in European Union-funded Erasmus Plus programs in the field of music and dance in inclusive settings. Also, cooperation with several research programs, for example, with Dr. Karl Garnicznik, university professor at the Department of Educational Science at the University of Vienna. In collaboration with him, she created a scheme of development called the Scale of Psychical Operations. And in addition to her writings on this development scheme, she made a related video, Observe, Distinguish, and Support Human Development with the Method of Rhythmics. Together with Magister Christoph Waldschlunger, she worked on a second edition, which is now complete and will be edited soon. They are also working on an English translation that will be of interest, mainly for those work in the field of special need education. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I just want to give you a short insight, provide an insight in Helga's actual work, the development grid. Just a few informations about this because we want to translate it in English as well. In 2006, Helga Garnicznik, as said, professor of the University of Vienna, together with Helga Nera Tsugasti as lecturer on our institute, published the research paper focused on observing children's development within rhythmic lessons. This developmental grid is based or was based on this research and allows observation in a holistic way, in particular in 8 functions you see on this horizontal axis. These are moving, perceiving, thinking, cogitating, speaking, communication, feeling, social, emotional acting, intenting, intuiting or creative acting, and remembering, memorizing. The vertical axis you see on here shows the developmental steps within each function from birth onwards, so that a differentiated observation is possible without classification of any ages. It is really interesting and was interesting for me when I was a student of Helga, how this table helps especially rhythmics teachers to get a holistic view of children's skills and competences, as well as it helps to design specific developmental supportive rhythmical exercises and rhythmic lessons for all ages, for people with impairments, for inclusive settings, and so on. In 2008, there was published also this film about the work with this grid in rhythmic lessons. And as Angelika said, we tried to make an English version, which hopefully is finished at the end of this year. So you can have also a view on this grid and also on the DVD, which is now digitalized and which you can see on our institute website. And hopefully it's a work that helps you and supports you in your work all over the world. It's really a great work with Helga.
Yeah. I have to continue the further work of Helga. Helga has been instrumental in the establishment and development of several leading organizations in the field of inclusive education. So she has co-founded the Inclusive Expert Conference between Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, the annual International Symposium for Inclusive Music Making in Vienna in cooperation with MDW and the Music School Vienna, the International Inclusive Sound Festival Vienna, Ich bin okay, translated I am okay, an Inclusive Dance Association, and just this year, the Community of Interest for Inclusion in and through Music in Austria. Now this organization is a member of the Austrian Music Council, so this is the highest level you can find. Helga also initiated the Music School Vienna for pupils with disabilities and oversaw their development and spread across the city. She is still co-working and sharing her expertise with various groups in Austria to help them implement the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, as well as disseminating rhythmic practice through continual networking with other institutions like the OFF Institute in Salzburg. Helga also gives workshops and lectures abroad, not only in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, but also in Mexico, UK, Spain, and Finland. She's author of books, numerous articles in professional journals and other publications. Last but not least, Helga was the real initiator of the second ICDS in Vienna in 2015, and therefore instrumental in the growth of the Dalcroze studies. After attending the first conference in Coventry in 2013, she said to me, Angelica, we have to host the second ICDS because Dalcroze will be 150 years old. He was born on 6th July 1865 in Vienna. This was not a request, it was an order to me. And her impulse became a reality when we gathered to celebrate the special anniversary in the summer of 2015. This story shows two aspects of Helga's mentality: the energy that she can give to other people and the awareness that Dalcroze practice is still up to date. Helga even says that we still do not appreciate everything that Jacques Dalcroze had to say. This would be an interesting point to ask her about directly. As some of her closest and most long-standing colleagues, it gives us a great pleasure to present this award to Helga on behalf of ICDS, and it is most fitting to do so at a conference that celebrates Dalcroze and related practices in diverse cultures, communities, and contexts. Helga, please accept with our deepest gratitude and enormous respect the ICDS Lifetime Achievement Award. Thank you. Gratulation. Dann haben wir noch die
Congratulations.
Ja.
Thank you to you all.
Ja, ich kann es dir mal halten, dann können das alle sehen. It looks like that. Yeah. And there are also some flowers.
Okay.
But Helga wishes to say also some words by herself. So, yeah.
Well, at the beginning of my career as a teacher for children with multiple developmental disabilities, I fortunately had the chance to complete the studies for rhythmic music education in Vienna, just as Angelica already said. My teachers, Rosalia Kladek and Brigitte Müller, not only imparted the appreciation for Dalcroze to our students, they also let us experience the mutual effects of movement, music, rhythm on our own personal development. I learned we do not do rhythmics, we are rhythmic in our whole attitude to life, to human beings, to our activities and energies. From this point of view, I have up until today the claim to research the approach rhythmic music education more deeply and to find new options for conveying it to young generations and to find interdisciplinary cooperation. Most interesting for me is the term rhythm itself, in the sense of our approach. It is true. The term rhythm cannot be stand by itself, because it results only through a number of qualities and conditions that realize rhythm by being effective together. Until now, I have found 13 of them. The even more exciting fact seems to me that each of these qualities and conditions has a guiding function for pedagogical work that is appropriate for children and fosters their development. Consequently, my second main interest on research concerns observation, analysis, documentation of the functional steps which children activate in our tasks. Just as Christoph already explained to you, this was my research. The result of the combination of these two research teams was presented in the report Rhythm as Movement of the Development of Mental Functions with Helga and me, and now I am continuing with Christoph. The exact observation and analysis of the developmental steps which happen during the learning processes is one of the preconditions for learning in heterogeneous, inclusive groups. We need the detailed knowledge of the individual abilities in the different functions in order to be able to adapt the contents in a way that includes inner differentiation, so that each pupil can contribute at his or her best. Concerning inclusive education, at the moment, we have a quite ambivalent situation. On the one hand, well-researched scientific findings in theory and practice on how human beings can learn and live together is available. Also, how full participation according to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities can work. On the other hand, we still have to deal with persons in the education government, which insist on separative exclusionary school systems. The ambivalence in the general meaning of how education should be implemented is nothing new. Reading text by Dalcroze critically, for example, his 14 pieces, we find the same position. On the one hand, he gives us an ingenious vision and amazingly up-to-date, realizable and sound practice of education that leads the individual to the best maturity as a valuable member of the society. For this, he would have deserved the Nobel Prize for Education and Sciences. On the other hand, Dalcroze elaborates on a very exclusionary system in his specification for music education in school. Indeed, he expresses himself about less gifted pupils in a very pejorative way. So, my conclusion. Each generation has great examples of persons who affect us like lighthouses, just as Dalcroze it does for generations. At the same time, we have to deal with realities which are quite ambivalent. So each generation must try anew with their efforts and according to their conditions to become part of those ideas, energies, and future-oriented chances, which will further develop on its own environment. Moreover, this will create better learning opportunities and development conditions for our pupils and students, and thus enable us all to participate more in human rights. Rhythmic music education is a wonderful way to do so. Thank you.
Ja. Genau, thank you. Und dann auch noch genau. Yeah.
Many thanks and good success for you all in your work and a lot of joy and and positive feelings and good going on in your work with your pupils, with your students, with yourself. Thank you.
Okay. Also, have a nice evening and nice afternoon for the rest of the conference. And we will stay on because we would like to see also Liesl Van der Merwe.
You want to share some photos? Don't you want?
Well, the time is now. We can share some photos if we have time, but is it good?
It's good, Angelica. Take a few minutes.
Okay,
Fine. Thank you.
good. So you see some photos, some groups of musicians and with teachers and with students and people with special needs. So festival at the MDW. Yeah. Yeah. So this is the work with the students and with a music teacher, with Robert Wagner. Poster for inclusion through dance. Podium discussion with Huanik, wie heißt er, Huanik, yes,
Huanik
he's a
is,
speaker of the people
in the
with
National
special needs.
Parliament, and he cannot breathe by himself, but he is genius in his ideas.
Yes. And here also you see here Shirley Salmon. She's also within you in the public now. Yeah. Children, students. This is Robert Wagner and Beate Hennenberg co-workers performance here at the Danube Canal. Yeah, this is the team of Ich bin okay, the dance studio, the opening of the dance studio with politicians, no? Political persons.
Yeah.
This is Kinder University, and Helga was very.
I did it 10 times.
10 times every summer. She offered special groups where
for 4 days, they were. We all are artists, and handicapped and not handicapped children. We painted, we made theater, we made a song, and at least we did a performance.
Yeah. So you see it here again.
This is Sabrina.
Yeah. Again.
Yeah. And we did the instruments also. Yeah.
This is another setting. Also.
This is my son.
This is in Helsinki, in Finland. She made a cooperation with a Erasmus cooperation with a music
with
university.
University.
Yeah. This is the Sound Festival. Here also discussions. Observations.
This was the deaf children study for 2 years.
Yeah, also. Yeah, this is
okay.
I am okay. It's the dance studio. This is again in the music school, I think.
This was the presentation for the Finnish group in Vienna for the Erasmus project.
And this is the last one. This is with one of our students. Okay. So I hope this gave you a short insight.
Overview.
Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Angelica and Christoph, for making such a special presentation, and thank you, Helga, for accepting the award and for being with us this afternoon. We're very, very grateful. that you were able to join us.
Thank you.
And we can show our appreciation for one last time.
Thank you.
And so we now move to our third and final keynote of the conference. And it's my enormous pleasure to introduce to you Liesl van der Merwe, who is Associate Professor in the School of Music at Northwest University, South Africa. Liesl is a practicing musician and teacher and research supervisor, as well as being a very active researcher herself. She's Professor of Bassoon for the School of Music, and she conducts the Northwest Youth Orchestra. Liesl is currently a grant holder for the National Research Foundation research project, Social Cohesion Through Community Music Engagement in South African Higher Music Education. She's written many articles and book chapters, and her co-edited book, Ritualized Belonging, Musicking and Spirituality in the South African Context, is coming out very shortly, so look out for that. Liesl is one of the leading figures in Dalcroze studies, and so we are very much looking forward, Liesl, to what you have to present to us this afternoon, and I give the floor to you.
Thank you very much, John, for that lovely introduction. I'm very excited to share something with you today. So I would like to invite you to join me on a joyful journey. Playing in this trio gives me great joy because I feel I belong. In a world plagued by a pandemic, experiencing and spreading joy might be more important than ever. We've all felt loss and isolation during the past 2 years. We have had to adapt and change our teaching, practice, and research, often losing what we love most, the bodily co-presence of others and the collective effervescence of social interaction. This paper will first discuss the nature, cause, and consequences of joy from recent literature on positive psychology. I will then share the findings of a metasynthesis of qualitative Dalcroze studies to explain the causes, nature, and transformational consequences of joyful experiences in Dalcroze sessions. When I told Dr. John Habron that I want to speak about joy in Dalcroze Eurhythmics, he reminded me that I first need to determine what joy is. Because if we knew what joy was, we would teach for it. This is a reference to Iris Job's article, If we knew what spirituality was, we would teach for it. We've all experienced joy. I thought I knew what joy was until I started analyzing the 21 articles of a special 2020 edition in the Journal of Positive Psychology dedicated to the notion of joy. Just like spirituality, joy is notoriously challenging to define. As a concept, it is undeveloped, the research is disjointed, and strangely enough omitted in positive psychology research before 2020. Joy can be a mood, a disposition, a virtue, the telos of virtue, an emotion, or a fruit of the spirit. For this address, I will mainly consider joy as an emotion and the telos or outcome of virtue. To illustrate my understanding of joy, let me tell you a Venda story collected by my colleague at Northwest University, Prof. Jaco Creer, from his latest book. The music video is our marimba ensemble at Northwest University. Here comes a story. There was a man who had children and wives. Now they started leaving to visit their family, who lived far away. This is how things were long ago. They went on foot. When they arrived at the water pan, they found lions. There were many lions with their children. The lions started to say, "Hey, meat, meat, our meat, our meat." The man muttered to himself, "Oh no, today I will be killed with my children." So he said to the lions, "Let me first sing my song, and then you can kill me." Then he started to lead the song. He said, "I'm asking even you lions, help us nicely. Sing and let the dust rise. Let there be a lot of dust. We will dig into the ground while dancing with my wife and children. Do not fool around when you dance. Raise a big cloud. This song will end only when we are tired." Ha! Indeed, the lions agreed. The lions started to gather. They had a meeting there. The man started the song. He said, "Now respond loudly." Yes, the man started to sing. He sang, "Hollandia ha, Hollandia ia ha, Hollandia ia ha ia." Today we are dying with our babies. It happened like this. When they danced together, a big cloud of dust rose up. The man said, "I see the dust is rising. They are dancing with their tails upright. Good heavens, they are dancing." Kruger explains that the man's invitation, the story is not finished. When the dust had covered everything, that man started to run away with his children and wives. They ran. They were listening to the lions singing, and they saw the clouds of dust. The man was glad to have escaped. He listened and found that the song did not end. The man was filled with gratitude and joy to have escaped. Creer explains that the man's invitation to the lions to sing and dance is more than a subterfuge. Conflict ideally is resolved by rituals that promote social cohesion, especially those that involve communal music performance. The never-ending song and dance of the lions is also a symbol of the ideal harmonious community. This story reminds me of a situation I found myself in a few years ago. There was a water crisis in a nearby town, Parijs. The energy company Sasol and the transdisciplinary water research team from Northwest University, QDWAT, asked me to facilitate a meeting with the parties involved by presenting a Dalcroze-inspired workshop. They specifically asked me to use Dalcroze-inspired activities since we've had a good experience with the same approach in another town, Brandfort. The Water Forum had sued the municipality, and people from both groups were to attend the meeting. They were very angry with each other. We were expecting riots to disrupt the meeting. The local community wanted to express their frustration at the lack of water in the town. We did not release the location of the meeting until the morning of the meeting. To be honest, I was really scared. A large group arrived. With all the courage and confidence that I could muster, I invited them into the space to walk to the beat of the music and participate in a Dalcroze-inspired workshop, which, to my great relief, they agreed to do. Afterwards, when they had reflected on the Dalcroze-inspired workshop, one of the Water Forum members said, "Before I went in there, I had 3 enemies. We are now friends. It was fantastic." I was relieved that we survived the day and filled with gratitude that the workshop had facilitated conflict resolution. The conflict resolution started with a joyful experience that resulted from a group moving rhythmically with the same goal. One participant said, "It opened my mind." This experience can be explained by Fredrickson's broaden and build theory. She explains that positive emotions such as joy promote discovery of novel and creative actions, ideas, and social bonds, which in turn build that individual's personal resources and improve the odds of successful coping and survival. This is exactly what happened in that workshop. The joyful engagement facilitated social interaction, which transformed relationship, brought out virtues in people, and facilitated temporary well-being. As one participant explains, it stopped us from pointing fingers. It helped us relax and talk from the heart. People became willing to engage and help each other with the town's water problems. This broadening and building potential of joyful experiences becomes particularly relevant and important in a world where the pandemic has highlighted and augmented inequalities and the potential for conflict. Joy not only opens the mind to facilitate conflict resolution, but it also broadens the mind and stimulates and motivates learning during Dalcroze sessions. But first, let's return to defining joy. Defining joy as an emotion, Mancuso offers a working definition, namely, joy may be thought of as delight that arises in response to a source of meaning or value in life. In this definition, joy is conceptualized as eudaimonic. Strong's definition also relates to virtues and is very relevant to the experience of joy in the context of Dalcroze studies. Joy is an embodied, enacted, and extended interdividual virtue that finds its meaning and expression between individuals in the habitus of a particular context or tradition for a particular time, balancing the dialectic tension of positive and negative realities of life. Matthews and Schnitker et al. Also state that joy is eudaimonia. In fact, the opposite of joy is specified as hedonia, pleasure driven by selfish needs. Therefore, something can be enjoyable or pleasurable but not joyful. Joy is found in the connection with someone or something meaningful to us. Joy can even be found in suffering. When the suffering places the focus on what is meaningful, growth comes as a result of the suffering, or spiritual meaning is derived from the suffering. Suffering might also create sensitivities that enhance our capacity to experience joy. In the pandemic, we might all have these heightened sensitivities that leave us open to experience joy. Joy will be explored as part of the recent discourse on eudaimonia and music learning, evident in the book and the special edition in Frontiers of Psychology, edited by Smith and Silverman. Smith et al. Explain that eudaimonia is concerned with societal harmony, community, and the pursuit of personal fulfillment through action. Therefore, joy matters because it contributes to our own and others' flourishing. The transformational consequences of joy I noticed in diverse contexts and in the literature sparked my interest in this topic. This interest was first ignited during the work that Dr. John Habron and I did in our Dalcroze Diamond project. We noticed that joyful experiences in the Dalcroze class could give one access to transformational experiences. According to Izzard, joy has evolutionary, biological, psychological, and social significance. Joy sparks an interest in fellow human beings and guarantees that we will be social creatures. Experiencing joy makes us socially responsive, gives us relief from negative emotions, and produces a productive disequilibrium that provides us with power, vitality, and confidence to strive towards attaining our goals and reaching self-actualization. Regular joyful experiences build our well-being since they broaden the scope of our attention and build our perceptual abilities. I also heard this in a symposium yesterday. Anita Pasternak also said this, that it intensifies perception. Broadened awareness and perception through communal joyful experiences urge us to play and help us to form new social relationships. An open mind and strong social connections prepare us to respond to challenges and build resources for survival. It is this fact that joy potentiates action by energizing the thinking body in action to do what matters most to us and others that makes it a relevant and urgent topic in a world faced with many environmental, social, and health challenges. Joy leads to virtuous behavior towards self and others. The nature of joy is essentially self-expansive, self-transcendent, and other-embracing. Unfortunately, as with most things, there are two sides to joy. Not all joy is other-embracing. There's also pathologically afflicted other-excluding joy, such as schadenfreude. Schadenfreude is the experience of pleasure in response to another person's misfortune. There is consensus in the literature that schadenfreude is the result of competition, where we rejoice in the failure of others because it elevates our social standing. Schadenfreude strengthens exclusivity. There are also warnings against promoting joy, since it might be seen as delegitimizing unhappiness and distracting us from the realities of injustice, which should provoke righteous anger. Promoting joy might even make those who do not feel joyful anxious and depressed. The pain that life affords needs to be grieved. One also needs to keep in mind that high-intensity joy might narrow the focus of attention and even lead to negative consequences, such as greater impulsivity. Sometimes, as with schadenfreude, joy does not necessarily mean growth for the community, but could only have positive consequences for the individual experiencing the joy. Keeping these warnings about the dark side of joy in mind, I tread carefully in my discussion of the joyful experiences in qualitative Dalcroze literature. Understanding the nature of joy in diverse Dalcroze contexts might help us realize the well-doing potential of Dalcroze in action. Dalcroze Eurhythmics can develop musicians' artistry as well as their engagement in communities and develop what Gauntlet et al. Call musicians as makers in society. Therefore, the purpose of this metasynthesis is to integrate the findings from 138 qualitative Dalcroze studies to generate a theory that explains the causes, nature, and transformational consequences of joyful experiences generated during Dalcroze Eurhythmic sessions. Metasynthesis is a systematic review and integration of qualitative studies. To understand the nature of joy, I first analyzed the article from a special edition on joy in the Journal of Positive Psychology. Through a thematic analysis, using Atlas TI9, I created a theoretical framework of joy. Using this framework, I studied joyful experiences in sources from the Dalcroze literature. These studies included qualitative data-based research, conceptual studies, philosophical studies, and reflections on practice. I will now outline the findings from the data analysis. I'll attach this theory in the chat later. I'm going to unpack the theory. So first, to understand what causes joy, we might learn a lot from what inhibits joy. Let me share one of my own experiences with you to illustrate inhibited joy. I remember an improvisation class at the Dalcroze summer school. We were sitting in a half moon on one side of the piano, each taking a turn to do an improvisation exercise in front of each other. We were being put on the spot. I was scared of getting it wrong, and therefore I waited. With every subsequent person taking a turn at the piano, the exercises became more difficult and my anxiety levels rose. When it was my turn, I could hear my heartbeat in my ears and not much else. I feared disappointing a teacher whom I respected a lot and looking inadequate in front of my colleagues and friends. Needless to say, I could not freely improvise and as a result experienced shame and embarrassment. So these are the things that inhibit joy. My experience is not unique. In a study by Habron Van der Merwe, where Dalcroze students shared their stories of lived experiences of spirituality in the Dalcroze class, Liesl, Ella, Iris, Lucy, and Helen felt stressed, self-conscious, or intimidated when they had to perform in front of others. In the same study, Iris, a music lecturer, said, "I don't see how it could be good for me to go through the exam system. It would just take the joy out of it, in all honesty, because then I would just go back to the point in my first year feeling like I'm doing everything wrong and struggling." So, a prerequisite for joyful experiences in Dalcroze Eurhythmics is feeling free from embarrassment, judgment, and self-criticism. In other words, feeling safe. We often feel safer while cooperating with others. Jaques-Dalcroze explains that in a group, the child feels himself delivered from all physical embarrassment acquired by the practice of combining his individual efforts with those of the rest of the class. He will conceive a profound joy of an elevated character. Something else that can shape and inhibit joy is cultural influences. Children may learn from their social environment when it is appropriate to express or suppress joy. To illustrate this, let me tell you another story. After my grandfather lost his wife, my grandmother, and both his sons, he was moved to a care home for the elderly in 2018. He was also diagnosed with Parkinson's. At that stage, I was aware of the benefits of Dalcroze Eurhythmics for the elderly, and my colleagues and I started presenting weekly Dalcroze-inspired sessions at the care home. I remember our first session clearly. The elderly did not know what to expect. They were seated for a concert. When we started the warm-up, one of the ladies, quite disgusted, said, "Oh my goodness, it's physical exercises." In the following weeks, they were not interested in passing a ball, taking an instrument, or moving expressively with a scarf. A reason for this might be that they have limited mobility. Furthermore, they value church and concerts, where movement is unacceptable. Through interaction ritual theory, we learned that if the group's values are not honored, the interaction ritual, in this case the Dalcroze session, will be unsuccessful, and as a result, there is no experience of collective joy. The elderly men and women in the care home have the same cultural background as mine, and as a child, I was taught to sit still and keep quiet during church services and concerts out of respect for the situation. The elderly at the care home value church and concerts, and so they do not want to improvise or move freely. Even when we change the setting, put them in a circle, we've tried many things. Doing so does not give them an experience of joy. So now we changed our musicking. Now we sing folk songs, sacred songs, and perform music that they enjoy. Sometimes we would move, and they would enjoy watching us. Here's another story, one of my own experiences which illustrates a joyful experience. I remember Betha and Habron James visiting us in South Africa and giving us training over one weekend, one of many inspiring training sessions with her. We did an activity where we embodied the music by traveling through the space with colorful scarves on our chests. We had to keep the scarves on our chest without holding on to them. We had to move lightly and quickly and be very aware of each other to avoid running into each other. So I want you to use your imagination. There was a playful atmosphere. We were laughing as we ran, ducked, dived, and flew through the room with open chests, hearts, and minds. I felt relaxed, focused, free, and connected to everyone in the room. It was a joyful experience. From the data analysis, it emerged that the codes in the categories could be sorted into themes using Seligman's well-being model, PERMA, to explain what causes joyful experiences in Dalcroze Eurhythmic sessions. The applicability of a well-being model alludes to the fact that joy creates a dynamic, virtuous circle or the upward spiraling of positive emotions. In other words, well-being creates joy and joy promotes well-being. This upward spiral starts with the interdividual body in action, so that's between people, or bodily co-presence, as Collins calls it. Engagement in focused bodily participation facilitates the generation of positive emotions, such as acceptance, freedom, and a sense of ease. These positive emotions strengthen relationships through collective effervescence, communal aesthetic expression, and participants' connections with their instruments, the music, and other people. These relationships are experienced as meaningful since all the faculties of the individual are united, creating a sense of belonging and a deep connection to nature and all that is beautiful. Meaningful interaction motivates self-actualization that can lead to greater accomplishments when challenges and abilities are in balance. These joyful experiences motivate a return to Dalcroze sessions, and the cycle repeats itself in an upward spiral. I will now discuss each theme separately. Jaques-Dalcroze said there is no greater happiness than in moving rhythmically and giving body and soul to the music that guides and inspires us. Lena, a Swedish chorister, experienced this firsthand. She says, "The joy of using the body is for me necessary to express the music." The data indicated that complete immersion in activities through active bodily engagement with a shared focus of attention generates joy. Being engaged in movement, improvisation, and singing with body movements are a few examples of joyful engagement during Dalcroze sessions. In a study by Habron et al. With student composers from Coventry University, they found that it is possible to extend the joyful experiences of childhood into higher education through somatic learning. Junttinen states, like many other music education approaches, the Dalcroze approach recognizes that positive emotions and experiences, social interaction with other participants, and creative engagement are integral elements of comprehensive and meaningful musical learning. Positive emotions include feelings of freedom, ease, and authenticity, which gave confidence and joy to the conservatoire-trained musicians, Catherine, Chuitan, Chris, and Anne. They were participants in Greenhead's doctoral study on dynamic rehearsal and Dalcroze Eurhythmics. In a study by Pretorius and Van der Merwe, Swedish choristers experienced positive emotions since they could rid themselves of the daily hustle and bustle of their lives through moving together. Luke, a man living with HIV and AIDS, shares his experiences of Dalcroze Eurhythmics. One of the many positive emotions Luke experienced was feeling accepted. In a phrasing exercise where the group members passed a candle at the end of the phrase, Luke experienced receiving the candle as a gift, which meant that people accepted him with all his personal faults. In my first experience with Dalcroze, I also experienced a deep sense of acceptance, which gave me joy. This Dalcroze session was the first of a series in decades of training and visits by our dear colleague and friend Eva Nifbrindvedin from KMH in Stockholm. I remember that first session vividly. Staff members from different faculties, students, music teachers, and other community members all moved together as equals. The joy I experienced from the bodily co-presence, focused attention, and the shared mood gave me a sense of belonging and emotional energy to immediately apply Dalcroze-inspired activities in my music class with early childhood education student teachers. In my view, participating in Dalcroze Eurhythmics is a valuable form of musicking, because according to Small, musicking means to take part in any capacity in a music performance, which includes listening. When we participate in Dalcroze Eurhythmics, we use our listening bodies in action, the theme of ICDS4. As such, the meaning of musicking or Dalcrozing lies in the relationships that are established between the participants by the performance or experience. Through participation in Dalcroze, we get to explore, affirm, and celebrate our relationships. Navarro Wagner also stated that the broad health musicking frame can help Eurhythmics teachers think of their lessons as a chance to music together. Dalcroze is uniquely positioned to build relationships since the interaction is playful. Connection with others through music rhythmically together fosters cooperation. Greenhead, Habron, and Mattia explained that dialogic interaction is highly prized by the Dalcroze Eurhythmics practitioner, since it helps the teacher and student to be more creative and fosters cooperation. Such social interaction is an element of meaningful music musical learning, and the BMAS student even described the social activity as a soul-enriching experience. In an IPA study by Van der Merwe and Habron, a Dalcroze teacher, Emily, said during Dalcroze teaching she is feeling love in a very deep way, a joyful way, which brings us to the next theme, making meaning. The collective effervescence experienced in Dalcroze group activities may elevate something seemingly ordinary to a level that brings meaning and connection to life. From the data analysis, it became clear that meaning in Dalcroze Eurhythmics is generated by unifying all the person's faculties, a sense of belonging, and connecting to the beauty of music and nature. In an IPA study by Ridout and Habron, a flute player, Catherine, says more than her flute playing was affected by Dalcroze Eurhythmics. I think it's me as just who I am. I feel like it's unlocked an imagination and curiosity and possibilities and the world. This experience of harmony and unity is one of the 5 phenomenological dimensions of joy. Meaning and holism were also a theme in an IPA study in which Dalcroze teachers shared their lived experiences of spirituality. Henry said, "It was this moment that she started and also the whole improvisation that I felt the music going through my whole body, and the body was like one with the whole space. It touched me entirely, like being connected. Really connected." Unity and harmony are also felt with the music. In Greenhead's recent article, Mindful Bodies, one of the participants, Thuy Tan, said after an epiphanic experience, "I was the music." In a study where the jazz students learned improvisation through Dalcroze, a sense of belonging was experienced when participants became aware of being a musician in relation to other musicians. Harmony with nature is also sometimes experienced, and we've heard many presentations including nature and harmony at this conference. Jaques-Dalcroze writes, "Joy is attained with the first step towards progress." In an interview with John Habron about Dalcroze Eurhythmics as a psychomotor education for children with special educational needs, Marie-Laure Bachmann said, "It depends on the children, but they mostly express excitement and or pleasure when it is well done and when they are successful." Dalcroze students can succeed and experience joy when their abilities can match the challenge. In an IPA study with ensemble members, Wentink and Van der Merwe found that all Csikszentmihalyi's conditions of flow were mentioned in the interviews. To illustrate the condition of skills matching challenges, Judy said, "The challenges don't seem impossible. I never felt totally discouraged, which I think is great." Such experiences of success give participants confidence and improve their self-esteem. All the participants in Greenhead's study reported unexpected breakthroughs in skillfulness. Gaining mastery in music making gave these participants joy. Self-improvement, often through challenging growth experiences and empowerment, is meaningful to participants. As one of the South African choristers who participated in Dalcroze-inspired choir rehearsals explained, "The world needs music. Music can change the whole wide world. When we move together, it just keeps us stronger." He said these Dalcroze-inspired rehearsals made him feel empowered to become a choir master one day. It is impossible to understand joy in Dalcroze Eurhythmics without experiencing it ourselves. So I'm going to unshare my screen now, and then I'm inviting you to please open your cameras, if that's at all possible, and put it on gallery view, and join in a lead and follow activity. We just heard it this morning in Karen Greenhead's workshop. So you can choose whether you want to lead or whether you want to follow, and you can switch between leading and following. And this is a Swedish and Finnish folk song, so I'm dedicating it to my Finnish and Swedish Dalcroze colleagues and friends. Sorry. Can you hear that? Thank you for everyone's fantastic participation. Okay, now I must do the right thing. I want to do a basic share. Okay. So, you all know what the nature of joy is. So I'm inviting you to please in the chat quickly write what you think the nature of joy is. And then see if it fits in one of these 5 dimensions. So quickly write what you think is the nature of joy. So while you type, please carry on typing. From the positive psychology literature, I noticed that there's 5 dimensions of joy. So it can be affiliated when we share that joy with others, like we did now, or it can be individual. The level can be high energy, generating a lot of energy and an urge to move, or it can be a low, calm, serene, quiet joy. It can be anticipatory, like how we looked forward to this conference, or it can be a joy that arises from a fulfilled need. Maybe tomorrow, looking back at this lovely event. So joy can be fleeting or abiding, and the source of the joy can be internal or external. Thank you for writing in the chat. So quickly see if what you've written fits into this table. So from the data, it became clear that the codes and categories of the nature of joy and Dalcroze Eurhythmics can be categorized under Key's dimension of subjective well-being, namely emotional, psychological, and social well-being. So I'm not going to read this. You can quickly scan through it and see if anything resonates with you. So what excites me most about generating joy in Dalcroze Eurhythmics is the transformational consequences of joyful experiences. Joy motivates. It keeps us interested and stimulated despite challenges. Joy moves us to learn, return to Dalcroze sessions, teach Dalcroze, and use it in community music settings. Jaques-Dalcroze said, "I look upon joy as the most powerful of all mental stimuli." Juntonen agrees and states that positive experiences foster positive motivation towards study. So the findings from the data analysis show that joyful experiences in Dalcroze Eurhythmics satisfy 3 psychological needs: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. These 3 needs are the components underlying Deki and Ryan's self-determination theory, a theory of motivation. The relevance of a macro theory of human motivation substantiates the argument that joy from active participation in Dalcroze sessions motivates us to do what we believe matters most. Let's quickly consider each of these components separately. Autonomy. We experience autonomy when we have the freedom to take control of our own learning. As Jaques-Dalcroze explains, joy arises in the child the moment his faculties are liberated from any restraint, and he becomes conscious of his control over them and decides on the direction in which that control shall be exercised. Eurhythmics develop students' autonomy because they always have choices to make, such as how they move in the space, respond to what they hear, and interact with each other. Habron James explains that quick response exercises may create autonomy in a child with special needs and produce a joyful spirit. Krumrei Mancuso also describes autonomy as a source of joy. In other words, the transformational consequences of joy produces further joy. Joyful Dalcroze experiences develop competence since they broaden the participant's attention, promote clarity of perception, and facilitate relaxed concentration. A story from my own experiences illustrates this. From 2017 to 2019, music lecturers at Northwest University had Dalcroze Skype training with Beth and Habron James. We would be together as a group in Ubibib, and she would be at the RNCM in the UK. These sessions took place Thursdays at 10 in the morning. Sometimes the Dalcroze sessions would be followed by a research committee meeting. In my experience, when we moved together, we had better meetings. We were more open towards each other, and we had more creative ideas. We could solve problems better in a relaxed atmosphere, and we resolved interpersonal conflicts during the movement before the meeting. Competence is also developed through Dalcroze Eurhythmics since it stimulates memory. I remember another experience. Eva Nivprint-Vedin has been visiting South Africa from time to time for more than a decade now, and every time she would do training with staff and students for 3 weeks. I remember during one workshop, we worked on Plastique Animée. We had to put a 2-part Bach invention to movement in pairs. I worked with Hatting Dafel, and we decided to sing our parts while showing it in movement. I found it very difficult to play without the score. But I remember after this Plastique Animée, I was able to play the music from memory on the piano. This was an unexpected breakthrough in skillfulness for me. The movement served as a memory highlighter. It was a joyful experience to suddenly be able to do something I could never do before. In a study where Dalcroze students shared their stories, Ella said, "I believe Dalcroze draws people together like nothing else can." Similarly, Trevino and Alvarez Burmedes explained that older adults experienced joy after Eurhythmic sessions, which positively changed their personal relationships. Communal joy facilitates social interaction and social responsiveness. In a community context where Dalcroze Eurhythmics was used to facilitate conflict resolution, Eulalia said, "I like the way it helped us connect, especially the mirror game and the rhythm game that we played, because we had to listen, but not only with our ears, but listen on an emotional or spiritual level, listen to the person. I liked that it helped us connect." Jaques-Dalcroze says in the article Eurhythmics and its Implications, during a lesson in Eurhythmics, there comes into being a sort of special atmosphere, filling each pupil with a quite individual sensation of solidarity. I think this sense of belonging has the potential to promote joy and social cohesion. Now that we know what joy is and why it matters, we can teach for it. Let's create safe learning environments and community Dalcrozing opportunities that are free from embarrassment and judgment. Let's avoid setting up competitive environments that promote other excluding schadenfreude, but rather focus on cooperation, inclusion, and other embracing joy. I believe Dalcroze Eurhythmics can contribute to our social well-being, since it has the potential to facilitate virtuous, other embracing behavior, especially when we take Dalcroze Eurhythmics out of the classroom into diverse contexts and communities. Joyful Dalcroze experiences help us to flourish as individuals and communities. Nelson Mandela once said, "It is music and dancing that make me at peace with the world. I would like to close with a poem. When we do Dalcroze together, you move me. I see you. I share your ideas. I share your emotions. We belong together. We are stronger together. We can change our world together. Thank you.
Thank you, Liesl, for that really truly inspiring keynote address. A wonderful way to end our series of keynotes at ICDS5. While our fellow delegates think about some questions, I'll just make a few comments of my own. If I may, I just wanted to say how rich and deep and illuminating I found your presentation today, Liesl. Really exemplary as well in its rigor. Those of us familiar with Jaques-Dalcroze's writings will know how much he talks about joy. So the fact that we have this theory now is really, for me, a breakthrough in Dalcroze studies. And you talked about this idea of joy being something which broadens and builds. Well, I think your work is broadening and building our field. I really appreciated the way that you wove in your country, your home country, its songs, its music, its stories. And for me, that just exemplifies really the fact that our practice is found the world over in such diverse communities and cultures. I love the new terminology. We've had Dalcrozing, we've even had community Dalcrozing. So let's see where those ideas take us. And we've learned a great deal, I think. The way you've synthesized this literature, it's given us a new angle, a new perspective on it. And we've not only learnt about joy in Dalcroze Eurhythmics, but we've also learnt that joy is Catherine Kay's middle name, which she's very proud of. Oh, and the last thing is that you've inspired me, Liesl, to ask my research colleagues at the RNCM if they would have a Dalcroze class before our next meeting. I think that's a great idea. So I hope, I mean, there's many comments coming through in the chat which look very positive, and that's just a lovely signal of people's appreciation. If you'd like to raise a question, you can raise your hand digitally. Or you can actually raise it physically and I will try to see it. Or you can write a question in the chat, but please put Q before your question so I understand it's a question rather than just a comment. And just to say, we have a quarter of an hour now for some questions and answers, questions and responses, but at 1/2 the hour, we come back together for a talking circle with Liesl. So if there's some of you who don't feel you've had a chance to ask your question, or if you want to ask more questions, after the break, please come back to, I think it's, well, you'll find it on the program which room it is, and we'll carry on with a talking circle with Liesl. So, do I see any hands? Let me have a look. People are so inspired and stimulated they don't know what to say. Karen Greenhead.
Well, I'm kind of sorry to be first because I don't want to break the atmosphere, but nevertheless, somebody must. I am interested in what you think, Liesl, or what your view is about the difference between joy and happiness and joy and contentment. We use these words and they don't mean the same things. And some people use the word joy where another person would say happiness. So I wondered if you had something to say about that.
Thank you, Karen. That's a very good question. That's actually what that whole special edition was about, was trying to figure out what joy is. And it is quite different than happiness, because happiness doesn't necessarily help you to connect with something meaningful. So happiness is a pleasant state, and joy is the delight in a connection with something meaningful. So joy is connection, and eudaimonic, where happiness is hedonic. So it's actually, in a way, sometimes seen as opposites. So joy, like I've explained, can come from difficult circumstances. It can come despite challenges and even through suffering, where that's not the case with happiness. So there are some words that are interchangeable with joy, and it's like flow. There's a lot of overlaps between joy and flow, and yeah. But some people say we should keep them separate. Other people say put all the positive emotions together. So it's a whole debate in positive psychology. It's a very good question. Thank you.
Thank you.
I see Melissa's hand. John, you're muted.
Thank you, Liesl. Melissa.
Yes, this was extraordinary. Thank you so much, Liesel. My question is about your work with conflict resolution and mediation through Dalcroze Eurhythmics. This is the first time I've ever heard of Dalcroze Eurhythmics used in this way, and I'm really floored and stunned and excited. So I'm wondering, I'm wondering if you could speak more to that, and if you have any experience in mediation, or, you know, please do say more.
Yes, I've had experiences, two specific cases where we worked with this energy company, and it was with a historian, bioengineer, and environmentalist, and many different people. So I've seen the potential it has, because after the movement, people are willing to meet each other, and the conflict almost resolves through the movement, and then they can speak openly, you know, without aggression. My children know if they want something from me, it must be after yoga. The answer after yoga, the answer is yes. So it's the same, moving together, then we are willing to be creative, to think differently, to solve problems together, to give of ourselves. It really brings out this other embracing virtues. And I've seen it many times with the meetings. It's fantastic. Having a meeting after Dalcroze is wonderful.
Thank you. And I'm thinking about that moment, like there must be some shift in energy if people are at loggerheads, that when they would be willing to move together. So that transformational moment of you know, stepping into the same space together must be quite something.
Yes, that's the risky bit. It's you know, the lions. Are they going to eat you, or are they going to sing and dance? It really, that is a very scary moment. And yeah, I was relieved that in both instances they were prepared to move. In the first time when we did it in Brandfort, not everybody wanted to move. Some people sat in chairs. They stayed seated, no matter how open the invitation was. But what was interesting, as the session progressed, we had a large elastic that we held, and they would also hold onto the elastic, even though they're sitting out on the periphery. So that was interesting. So even if they decide to sit on the side, they might still be participating in some way. Watching and listening is also participating.
Thank you so much.
We have a question from Marlene in the chat. She'd just like to know, Liesl, could you repeat the Dalcroze quote that begins with, "I look at joy as the most"?
Yes, where it stimulates motivation, and I will repeat it. Just give me a moment to find it. Stimmy. I look upon joy as the most powerful of all mental stimuli. It's from Jaques-Dalcroze 1930, page 100. I'll put it in the chat.
Thank you, Liesl.
Thank you.
And thanks to Joy Mayer for putting a reference there in the chat to Liesel's research about her work in Brantford. Beth Ann has a question.
Not a question, it's a comment, really. I feel very moved watching that. Thank you very much, Liesl. And for me, it's very humbling, having been one of the teachers that's been part of your journey, along with Eva, brought back very strong memories, not just watching the marimba group playing, how they were in the foyer when we arrived, and the movements that they did playing, that took me back there to the rooibos tea we were given and the musicians playing. But yeah, I guess it's a kind of, we never know where our teaching will go, and that's what your presentations left with me. So an encouragement to everybody out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth Ann. Yes, I'm very, very grateful to all the Dalcroze teachers, especially you, Beth Ann, and Eva, who shaped our lives. And all our teaching at the conservatory, we all teach like that now, using movement in theory, in oral, in practical, with the orchestra. That's like Helga said, it becomes who you are. So I'm very, very grateful to you. Eva.
I would like to thank you a lot, and I will say that I am as much thankful to you and grateful to you for what you have given to me. So it's a give and take and receive all the time. So I have learned so much from you and from all my visits in Poch. So thank you. It have enriched my teaching back home as well. Thank you so much, Liesl.
Thank you, Eva. And I thought when you saw the marimba players, you know them.
Yes,
Tulani's been in Sweden, and
yes, been
and all of them.
exchange students with us for half a year here.
Yes, yes. Thank you. I treasure every moment that we were together and look forward to March.
Too much. See you then.
Yes.
Thanks, Eva. Louise Mathieu.
Thank you, Liesl, for this beautiful presentation, very inspiring and very touching. You use the notion of productive disequilibrium. Could you discuss this a little bit more, please?
Thank you, Louise. That's a very good question. What I'm thinking about immediately is that the ability and the challenge must meet. So it's productive when it doesn't exceed our ability or puts us in a shameful, embarrassed situation. So where it's productive is when it broadens our attention and stimulates our mind to be creative and novel and work towards that which is meaningful for us. Maybe it's becoming a better musician or becoming a better community musician. So I think there's certain conditions for it to be productive, but that there must be a little bit of a challenge for you to move forward in any connection with what is meaningful to you. But productive is important.
The challenge makes the disequilibrium. Is that what you mean?
Yes. And then what I think is important is that challenge shouldn't exceed the ability. So it's the balance between boredom and anxiety.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have a hand up from Alexandra Millenberg.
Hi, thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. But I have a question I believe when I read Dalcroze's texts that you can experience an ideal of how the student is supposed to be in the lessons, the movements. And I've also experienced this myself as a Eurhythmics teacher and a Eurhythmics student, that you have some kind of ideals. And those ideals sometimes creates restraints and communicates values, even though I don't speak it out. And in that environment, so you speak out the safe group, the safe room, everyone's welcome, everyone can do what they like. And in the silence, you communicate something else.
Yes.
And it's really difficult sometimes because you're also doing it without being totally conscious about it. So do you have any tips and tricks and thoughts about that?
Well, what I hear from you, thank you. It's a very insightful question. What I hear is values, and it's important that if our values is different from the groups, then they know it and they experience it, and it's an unsuccessful Dalcroze or music education lesson. So it is the teacher's responsibility to be sensitive to the group's values and to adjust. And that's what we found at the care home for the elderly. We tried everything. We adjusted, and now it's wonderful. It's a process sometimes to let go of what you value, to respect what they value, and find each other somewhere in the middle.
I think we have time for one more question. It's 1 minute to the hour. So, Marilena.
Thank you. I just actually wanted to comment, but Liesl already said it out loud, that it really depends on the teacher. I don't think it's no method or approach in itself guarantees good results or good experiences or joy or whatever. So it's really up to the teacher finally how the situation builds up pedagogically. So even though the approach in itself would have the possibility for enjoyment, and so, but it's really up to the teacher finally, like what the experience of the student will be. So just to confirm what Liesl already said. Thank you.
I can't agree more. Thank you, Maria-Lena. Yes.
Well, thank you again, Liesl, for a truly inspiring keynote address. And thank you, colleagues, for your participation. We'll show our appreciation once more to Liesl, and those who want to join us can come back to the talking circle at 1:30. Thank you.
Liesl, have you had a chance to look through the chat? I will wait for you to do that before I close the meeting.
I've copied all the comments for Liesl.
Brilliant then. I shall close this meeting. Thank you so much.